Number 3 storm signal to remain in place until at least 9 a.m. tomorrow. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's been let down by Russian leader Vladimir Putin over the war in Ukraine. Happy Friday, you're watching TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. The strong wind signal number 3 is in effect and will remain in force until at least 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. The observatory says the chance of issuing a higher tropical cyclone warning signal is relatively low. Mimo Singhai reports.
A cloudy day and a still sea. Winds were occasionally strong at the central harbour front. Despite the strong wind signal number 3, tourists continued exploring the city. The observatory says tropical cyclone Metak made a landfall near Shanwei, Guangdong on Friday afternoon. The storm is expected to edge closer to the vicinity of the Pearl River estuary on Friday night and Saturday morning, skirting around 100 kilometers to the north of the territory. Unless Metak adopts a track closer to the city and intensify, weather authorities say the chance of raising the existing tropical cyclone warning signal is relatively low.
With Metak departing, the observatory says the weather will improve and residents should expect a few scorching hot days early next week.
But Hong Kong may face a super typhoon in the middle of next week. According to the present forecast, tropical cyclone Gaza will move towards the vicinity of Luzon Strait and intensify notably in the next 2 days. The observatory says the storm may reach super typhoon intensity and enter the northern part of the South China Sea. Gaza will edge closer to the coast of Guangdong around Wednesday. A few Australian tourists who have been paying attention to the development of the storms said they will be flying back home on Wednesday.
Look, you know, if there's flight changes, you just got to roll with that, don't you? That's part of international travel, isn't it? So, yeah, we'll be fine, you know. We'll find somewhere. We've got 2 sons who live here, so we'll go and doss on their floor if we have to.
The observatory has been applying AI models to help forecast the weather, including the development and trajectory of each storm, allowing authorities to make better predictions. Some residents praised the work of the observatory.
And I think the timely information to us, as well as what they do as prepare work to warn us against potential danger, I think that's important. And I think they are doing a good job. I mean, why do we need this in the times of typhoon? It's really to keep people safe.
Numbers 9, TVB News.
Carlson Chan has ceased to be Director of Government Logistics after authorities announced the news in an official notice. Chan's department was involved in a government water supply contract scandal in August. The Government Gazette states that Deputy Director Avia Lai has been appointed as the acting director, while Chan is said to be on pre-retirement leave. No traces of Chan can be found in the government telephone directory. Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Christopher Hoy, said such a manpower arrangement is normal. Chan was in charge of handling a government water supply contract with Shinding Shin Trading. The $52.9 million contract was later axed after the company was suspected of supplying counterfeit water. Chan appeared in front of the press and apologized days after the scandal. U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have returned to the U.S. after a state visit to the U.K. The situation in Ukraine proved high on the agenda during the trip. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer highlighted the need for greater pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin. U.S. President Trump said Putin had let him down. Daniel Rao tells us more.
U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump arrived at Joint Base Andrews after having travelled to the U.K. for a state visit, meeting with the British royals in Windsor on Wednesday and Prime Minister Keir Starmer at Chequers on Thursday. Among the topics tackled mostly in private talks between Trump and Starmer were the wars in Ukraine and Gaza and U.S. tariff rates on steel imported from the U.K. While the Prime Minister has played a major part in European efforts to shore up U.S. support for Ukraine, Trump's visit offered few major advancements. Starmer stressed the need to continue ramping up pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin.
we have to put extra pressure on Putin. And it's only when the President has put pressure on Putin that he's actually shown any inclination to move. So we have to ramp that pressure up. I think it's important to have this conversation in the context of what's happened in recent weeks. We saw damage and bombing to the British Council in Kyiv. These are targets that it was thought until recently were not targets that would be hit. The British Council, the European Union Embassy, the Council of Ministers, where President Zelensky's ministers work was hit. Again, these were thought to be places that wouldn't be hit. And then the incursion into Poland last week. And if you put that together, what you can see is either an emboldenment or at least an increased recklessness on Putin's part.
The US president expressed frustration with Putin, but has not made good on threats to impose new sanctions on Russia.
I'm very honored to tell you that we've solved 7 wars, wars that were unsolvable, wars that couldn't be negotiated or done. The U.S. has done 7 of them. The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down. It was going to be Russia and Ukraine, but we'll see how that turns out. But that turned out to be, I thought it might be among the easiest of the group. But we had settled just about every conflict, and as you know, we're working very hard on Israel and Gaza. All that's happening over there. Complex, but it's going to get done. It'll all get done right. And likewise, Russia and Ukraine will get done.
Meanwhile, the head of Britain's foreign intelligence agency said there's absolutely no evidence Putin wants to negotiate peace in Ukraine. Sir Richard Moore, chief of the Secret Intelligence Service, or MI6 as it is more commonly known, said Putin was stringing the West along. Moore said Putin seeks to impose his imperial will by all means at his disposal, but he cannot succeed. Dan Harrell, TVB News.
President Trump said he was tremendously thankful for the pageantry and splendor lavished on him in the UK. During Trump's second state visit to Britain, the two countries largely sidestepped major public disagreements over difficult trade and geopolitical issues. The mutual warmth, along with Trump's abundance of kind words bestowed on the host country, suggested that an all-out charm offensive by the royal family and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer had its desired effect. Trump and Starmer signed a historical agreement on science and technology. They also held a roundtable with global business leaders where they suggested the deal could mean significant job gains. Trump said at a news conference at Chequers that the bond between the two countries is like no other anywhere in the world. Still ahead, Chinese and American leaders set to discuss TikTok deal and trade relations. U.S. again vetoes United Nations Security Council's Gaza ceasefire call. And strike action across France as hundreds of thousands join protest against budget cuts. Welcome back. Businesses in the region are awaiting a phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader President Xi Jinping later today, during which they're expected to discuss tariffs and formally strike a deal on TikTok. Danny Cho reports.
Donald Trump, who flew back to Washington after concluding his UK trip, is seeking to closing on a deal to allow video sharing platform TikTok to keep operating in the United States. He said he will speak to President Xi Jinping soon in hopes to finalize the app's fate and make progress on trade talks, although the Chinese embassy in Washington has yet to confirm the call. The two leaders last talked in June to diffuse tensions over export restrictions of rare earths.
So what we're doing, and we're speaking to President Xi on Friday to see if we can finalize something on TikTok, because there is tremendous value, and I hate to give away value, but I like TikTok. We are getting, the United States is getting a tremendous fee plus, I call it a fee plus, for just making the deal, and I don't want to throw that out the window.
Trump noted he personally uses the app very legitimately after extending the deadline for TikTok to wrest its U.S. assets from ByteDance to December the 16th.
We may do an extension with China, but it's an extension based on the same terms that we have right now, which are pretty good terms.
He further hinted that TikTok will be owned by all American owners. A consensus hammered out by Chinese and US negotiators in Madrid, Spain earlier this week is still under discussion. While the details of the framework agreement taking shape are sparse, Chinese officials reportedly called the deal to switch TikTok to US-controlled ownership as win-win. They have pledged to review matters related to the company's technology exports and intellectual property licensing, including the algorithm, which is Beijing's main sticking point. Reports say the company's US operations could be bought by a consortium that includes cloud computing company Oracle, as well as investment firms Andreessen Horowitz and Silver Lake. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
The United States once again vetoed a UN Security Council resolution that had demanded an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages. The U.S. said it did not go far enough in condemning Hamas. The 14 other members of the UN's most powerful body voted in favor of the resolution, which described the humanitarian situation in Gaza as catastrophic and called on Israel to lift all restrictions on the delivery of aid to the 2.1 million Palestinians. Nazvi Karim has more.
Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/583 please raise their hand? Those against? The draft resolution has not been adopted.
The United States veto being a permanent member of the UN Security Council means yet another draft resolution demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages ends on the scrap heap.
This resolution draws a dangerous false equivalence between Israel and Hamas. There can be no equating the two, full stop. The hostages in this resolution are a mere afterthought. The United States will never accept this. President Trump will never accept this. He has made clear all 48 hostages must be released now.
This as hundreds of thousands of Palestinians flee famine-stricken Gaza City as Israel continues a ground invasion. With daily civilian deaths and a lack of humanitarian aid, the military operation has been condemned by many countries, the US being an exception, with President Donald Trump justifying Washington's stance. While in England, Trump was asked why he did not use his unique power to stop Israel.
And people forget about October 7th. I can't forget about it. So I want it to end, but I want the hostages back. I don't want the hostages used as human shields, which is what Hamas is threatening to do.
Meanwhile, Palestinians either follow Israeli military orders to evacuate Gaza City or they are staying. Either way, none feels safe. Mohammed Naban, who is displaced from the north, said the situation is more difficult than can be imagined. All the camps are being bombed, he said. There is no safe place, not in the south nor the north. We have no one but God. Vehicles with mountains of personal belongings clog the temporary corridor Israel has opened for evacuation. Some have much less. Ahmed Ayesh says all he has is a bag of clothes, some blankets and tarpaulin. That's all I own in my life after 48 years. After 20 years of misery, I was left with some dollars, around 150. Not even worth the meal, not even lunch meal. That's all I own after 48 years. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Clashes broke out between police and protesters in Paris on Thursday during rallies against French President Emmanuel Macron's government. Strikes hobbled the Paris metro and disrupted other services. The police fired volleys of tear gas in a bid to quell the unrest. The day of upheaval for the European Union's second largest economy aimed to turn up the heat on new Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu and his boss Macron. They're engaged in an intensifying battle, both in Parliament and on the streets, about how to plug holes in France's finances. Macron's opponents complain that taxpayer-funded public services are being eroded by his government, which has lurched from crisis to crisis since he dissolved Parliament in 2024. Left-wing parties and their supporters want the wealthy and businesses to pay more to help rein in France's debts. This, instead of public spending cuts, they contend will hit low-paid and middle-class workers. Back locally, 2 women suffered septic shock after undergoing infusion treatments at a cosmetic clinic in Central. David Lam, a lawmaker from the medical field, suspects the incident may involve criminal acts, stressing that intravenous injections have to be performed by trained personnel under doctors' prescription. Samantha Lee tells us more.
The duo, both aged 57, visited the clinic BioScore Hong Kong, where they received infusion treatments purportedly containing nicotinamide mononucleotide, or MNN. They developed chills shortly after the dosages, followed by fever and vomiting. Both are now in stable condition, but remain hospitalized. MNN is a vitamin B3 derivative naturally found in human bodies and food. It is supposed to have anti-aging effects. Dr. Chung Pa-ho noted MNN injections are not as popular in Hong Kong as it is in Taiwan, and there had not been data to prove its medical efficacy. He estimated that the 2 patients were infected by bacteria in the product. Chung said that issue with improper storage or the injection's production process can lead to severe side effects. In 2013, the government stipulated that all medical treatments that involve injections can only be operated by registered medical practitioners. Lawmaker representing the medical sector, Dr. David Lam, suspects the incident may involve criminal acts, given that MNN is not a licensed drug in Hong Kong. Apart from infection, Lam pointed out that improper injection also carry other risks and could lead to death if excessive air or rigid substance were injected. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Hong Kong Customs confiscated more than 9,000 pieces of suspected counterfeit items sold online, including fashion accessories and health supplements. Officers seized some $15 million worth of items. Among them were fake handbags, watches, sneakers, and weight loss drugs. This after spot checks in 2 warehouses in Yuen Long and 1 in Tsing Yi. Samples of the suspected fake health supplements were sent to a government laboratory for testing to see if they contained any harmful substances. 4 men and 3 women were arrested and have been granted bail. A suspected wartime bomb was found at a construction site in Quarry Bay. Some 300 people in the vicinity were evacuated, while 2 exits of the MTR station were forced to close temporarily. The device was unearthed at a site between Kings Road and Pan Hoi Street. The police received a report at around noon that a 1.3-meter-long wartime bomb-like device was discovered at the construction site. The force's bomb disposal personnel and firemen were dispatched to the scene. The 2 MTR exits were reopened late in the afternoon. And in sports, a Swiss wakeboarder set a world record at his 113th attempt. Jamie Huser never gives up, and his perseverance was rewarded with a new world record on Lake Falerin in Switzerland. Huser tried 112 times to conquer a 140-meter rail on a wakeboard and finally entered the record books on his 113th try. Showing extraordinary focus and balance, Huser remains steady on the floating rail, continually adjusting his positioning and speed. The daring feat was made all the more remarkable by the fact that Huser had recently undergone surgery on his left shoulder. The rail seemed to go on until he finally reached the end and hugged his team. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.